Hey! So it came up in our podcast that we really enjoyed doing, the top 10 players in the NBA, which you can also check out on YouTube if you want. Whether Keyonte George can be an all-star in the future. I had him ranked a little bit lower than you guys did, but it piqued my interest to go back and look at him more closely, especially when I disagree with you and John, because you guys are obviously great analysts as well. So I went and looked at what Keyonte was doing. First of all, though, Danny, let's start with what he's doing in his top line numbers this season.
Keyonte George is averaging 23.5 points per game, 6.9 assists, only 3.5 turnovers. That's about a 2-to-1 assist to turnover ratio, a steal, and about a half a block per game. And if you like these numbers, 60.5% true shooting on 27.6 basketball reference usage.
And for that aspect, he's about 2.5 points better than the league average in true shooting. So for any guard to be that efficient is impressive. And he's been one of the big drivers, along with Lauri Markkanen, of what we talked about is a pretty competent Jazz offense when everyone is playing. And so I think where we can start with George is with his shooting. And some interesting stuff stood out when I went through his numbers. When he is set up by a teammate where he has a touch time of a second or less, he shoots 42.6% on what we'll call team created three-pointers. So we like to talk about that sometimes rather than just catch and shoot, because sometimes it's still team created. If you catch it on a closeout, take one dribble to the side and shoot it, this still captures that. On three-pointers that we consider to be self-created, where he has more of a touch time, 30.3% from three. So that's one aspect of his three-point shooting. On a related number, Keyonte George, when he's open, is shooting a ridiculous percentage, 50% on uncontested threes, although that only comprises less than a third of his attempts, 28.6 of his attempts. And so that then dovetails with his overall team created efficiency, 64.4% field goal percentage, which that's just a crazy number for team created shots, only 46.7% on self created shots. Now, one thing that does not capture, however, is his getting to the foul line, which we'll talk about more. A lot of his self created plays are getting to the foul line, and he's really improved there. So 64.6% of his shots are self-created, and so a little less than 2/3 of his shots are self-created. But the team-created stuff, it is really, really efficient. And so I think that's where I can start with him before we get into the conversation of whether he's going to be an all-star, Danny, is just the fact that he can play more of an off-ball role, which a lot of these point guards can't. That's exciting to me because you don't run into this circumstance like we have Trae Young, John Morant, LaMelo Ball, where, oh, you have to give this guy the ball, but maybe he's not that good at that. And then he doesn't really play any defense. And he's going to just get run over because he's too weak on defense. And so now you're like, can this guy really be a big component of a winning team? I don't have those concerns with George for this reason.
It's also a great fit. He's playing currently with Lauri Markkanen, but as teams evolve, one of the big developments of particularly this year is the growing use of big wings handling the ball. And Keyonte George is an unusually good fit with a player like that, a Jaylen Brown, a Deni Avdija, because that guy is larger. They can occupy the attention. And that doesn't mean it's you're off the ball the whole time. It's a complementary role more than a second side creator. And we're seeing teams be a little bit more egalitarian. And I think Keyonte George works better in that system than most young guards.
So this is the other thing that stuck out to me as well. When you look at the team created stuff, he's actually getting a fair amount of team created stuff in the half court, which is rare for a guard. But within Will Hardy's system, he's shown a lot of facility as a cutter. And like what the Jazz like to do generally is give the ball to someone up top, someone like Yusuf Nurkic, because Walker Kessler's been out all year. Or they'll run a lot of stuff where guards are screening for someone like Markkanen, a shooter, Bryce Sensabaugh, Ace Bailey. They have pretty good shooters on the wing. And then George can fake that screen, slip to the basket, and get open. But he is a quick cutter, a devastating cutter, and he can finish on those plays as well. So he's getting about one play a game that's just a cut right to the basket for an uncontested shot. And when you think about overall efficiency, that adds up. He's 20 of 26 on those plays, cutting to the basket is a few more times when he's gotten fouled. So if you think about many guards who struggle to be efficient getting to the basket, that's because a lot of times they just have to go through 8 guys to try to finish. And the Jazz offense and George's comfort in it now, his third year in Will Hardy's system, playing off those shooters. Again, that shows you how he can be a part of a successful offense when he's not the guy driving it. Don't worry, we will get to his individual offense as well. And I think the first place to go on that is with his driving and his foul drawing. Keyonte George, he drives left or right about equal percentages of the time. But as I watched the film, it was obvious to me that when he goes left, he's more adept at foul drawing. Now, he's not necessarily like foul hunting to a ridiculous degree, but one of the things that he does is you play hard, you try to score, and then when you feel the contact, you can react to that. I think he does a pretty good job there. And when he's going left, he can finish left really well, but also he can use his body on the right side of his body to draw contact. And I think that's one of the things that he does a great job of, is seeing when the guy is not in legal guarding position and attacking his body. The other thing he's gotten pretty good at is just anticipating when a player is about to foul him and going into his shooting motion. We've seen this now. Players always adapt, right? About a decade ago, it was Lou Williams just feeling the guy's arm going in, feel the contact first, and then shoot it, right? So, but then that was outlawed in terms of it being a shooting foul. Now that's a non-shooting foul. So what Keyonte George will do is he sees that the guy is coming and about to reach in, and he'll just start a shooting motion before the contact. So he actually makes those shooting fouls. The other thing too is he's just quick. Like, he's not an absolute nuclear athlete, but if he gets out on the break, he's definitely going to throw it down. And then he also can just blow by guys, right? There's one play against Boston who really tries to pressure up, where Jordan Walsh was pressuring him near half court. He just blew right by Jordan Walsh, went all the way to the basket for a layup. And again, he also, as a finisher, has been really impressive. And again, he's not like an unbelievable finisher, because not that many guards are, but within 10 feet, and again, he shoots a lot of floaters too. He shoots 55% as a contested finisher. That's above league average. And then within 5 feet, overall shoots 67.5%. Some of that is some of those uncontested plays that he's able to get both in the half court and getting out in transition. And he also has a pretty good floater game as well, shooting in the high 40s in the upper paint. So he's able to get into the lane now, especially going left. He really takes off, but can counter going right as well. He can reject the screen, he can use the screen, or he can just blow by even a good defender who's trying to pressure him up. So from an athleticism standpoint, he's never been known as someone who's like a John Morant level of athlete, but I think he's solidly above average. He's probably, I would say, in the 75th, 80th percentile, especially when you consider his size, his strength among point guards. So I think that's one of the things that stood out to me in this analysis was, and he's really improved his body, obviously, since Baylor when he weighed like 225, is that he does have the athleticism to me to get to close to an all-star level, or maybe even get to an all-star level, because he's able to create that separation on guys one-on-one. And you need that at 6'3". So is that something that you've seen from George as well? Do you think that he can just beat guys? Is that part of his package there?
I think he can beat them enough. And George does benefit from kind of the shape of the help defense because of the Jazz offense, but I think he can. I think he can get by the players enough. And one big number that kind of dovetails in with what you were saying is he's harnessing that to get to the line. Keyonte George is averaging 7.2 free throw attempts per 36 minutes. That, among guys who played at least 500 minutes, is 21st in the league. So that means there are a lot of teams that don't have a guy as good as he is. Now, that's Lauri Markkanen's in the top 32. He's a little bit behind him. But Keyonte George is doing that. And this is his age 22 season. There's a lot of room to grow here. And so he has, to me, he has the elements. And yeah, he's not he's not a nuclear athlete. He's not a Men Thompson or Ja or anything like that. But he knows what he's doing, and he has enough of an advantage against most on-ball defenders that I think it can work, especially with screens and a good offense.
Yeah, and then you throw in the foul drawing as well, and he finds ways to be efficient that a lot of young guards don't, right? There's getting to the foul line, there's getting these little cuts in the half court, there's making spot ups, even shooting off a movement a little bit at times. So he's not totally dependent on just attacking off the dribble in pick and roll, and that's certainly a part of the offense that you need, and every team needs someone who can do that, and he is capable of doing that. But where he's able to boost himself into being a really good offensive player is these ancillary things that just are able to make it statistically so he looks pretty good. And I mean, especially I would say the foul drawing is just really impressive. He will take off kind of sideways a lot of times too. Again, when I was talking about him being able to attack the shoulder of a guy who's not in legal guarding position, he'll take off sideways, kind of get clipped by the guy who's moving over, and he's able to draw the foul. But the other thing too is he gets a lot of and ones because he takes off pretty well. He'll usually gather himself pretty well, but he still is trying to make the shot. He knows when he can take off and probably draw contact, but he's not putting himself out there and just going, hey, and just throwing it off the backboard. And if he doesn't get the call, he's burned. He'll still jump up. He's really good at double pump finishes. We'll show you the video on this of just on YouTube of how spectacular some of these finishes and ones can be. But really, the extension that he gets is impressive. Let's talk about his passing now, because that obviously is a major part of all this. And we haven't seen him as just the line up the pins, knock him down pick and roll operator, because A, that's not how the Jazz play, and B, the one really good pick and roll threat that they have is Walker Kessler. We haven't seen him try to get in the lane, put guys in jail, throw the alley-oop. The Jazz just don't have anyone who's really going to finish that. But I did notice out of pick and roll that he had some pretty nice passes, especially if the other team was switching. If he could get a hard roll to the basket, he was able to fit some passes into tight windows. There's one where Nurkic slipped through that I really liked with the player trailing behind him. And, he can find Nurkic in the pocket. Yeah, it's not great offense for a Yusuf Nurkic floater, but that's in there. When George has interacted more with Markkanen, which they're doing more at the end of games, or they're even on nights Markkanen is available, they are closing with him at center. And so those two guys interacting at the end of games can look pretty good. During the meat of the game, they like to have Lowry off the ball as well. And then George can take advantage of the attention that he gets to drive. They've been doing that since the first game of the year when they blew out the Clippers. And I'd say the thing that stood out the most to me about George's passing is that he just has a very good feel for when a guy is subtly open. What NBA teams have been doing a lot more of is trying to creep up a little bit more. Like the Miami Heat were really the ones who started it. If their defender is guarding someone in the corner, they'll come up and maybe even, probably almost as much as 10 feet off the baseline. And Keyonte George will see that player is not being guarded, throw a really quick pass to him, and then he can either take the quick corner three if it's someone like Markkanen or Sensabaugh, or if it's, say, a Cody Williams, then that guy can drive right behind it because the pass has so much steam on it and it's delivered at exactly the right time. He's also just very solid at hit-ahead passes as well. Just having an understanding, and I think this is something that Will Hardy has really preached as well, of just a guy might not look open, like the X might be kind of near the O, but maybe he's just not quite between his man and the basket. Maybe he's just not quite able to intercept the pass. Maybe he's just has his head turned or something. And so George will get a lot of passes where he just throws it to a guy who's not like looking that open, but still is going to have an advantage. And that's a really subtle thing for a passer to appreciate. So I really like that a lot about George's game as well. And then finally, shoots 90% at the line. And that's a good reason historically to believe that his shooting can come around even more. So I think his off the dribble three looks good. It is a threat. Defenses are guarding that. Is that going to get to 35% off the dribble threes? That's actually a really good number. But I think it's enough of a threat where it opens up the rest of his game. So I'm pretty excited about Keyonte George. I think he's continued to get better. I think when Utah really hits the gas, he's going to be in a great system for him. And he's I think a guy who might end up being underrated for a lot of his career because he's never going to do like every or that one thing that's just like so incredibly awesome. Like he's not just like an unbelievable highlight level of passer all the time at point guard, but a point guard who can do everything well. I think he has the size to be decent on defense. He hasn't been yet in his career. That's going to be a very valuable player. Is that going to be an all-star? Could he be more along the lines of like a Mike Conley, Kyle Lowry? Probably won't be as good on defense as those guys because that was a big part of the package there. But maybe that sort of level of player who might make an all-star team or two. I think he could get to that level for sure.
I'm hopeful that his on-ball game can improve a little bit at just 22, like the growth that we've seen from Keyonte George. So I think he could be a multi-time all-star, but I don't think he's going to be like a top 5, top 10 player in the league. Like usually those players are more overwhelming athletically than George is, but I love not only where he is now, but the rate of improvement for him is extremely encouraging. That's why I had him ranked so high in top prospects.